I'm not saying I necessarily believe this, but if we're just talking about like cricketers out of the
Mm,
Fab Four, you could make an argument that he's the best one. The biggest criticism I think people will have of him now is his T20 strike rate, right?
mhm.
Go look at the last T20 World Cup final that he played in 21. He played a scorcher of an innings, right?
Yeah.
Like, make no mistake about it. This guy is a nice guy and everything, but he's a stone cold killer, like on the
Mhm.
field. Like, he'll smile his way and act all nice and everything, and you look up and he's killed you. But you know how they always put that scenario out that if you had to like have one guy bat for you in a test match, he might be the guy that I'd throw out there. One of the modern greats, Kane Williamson, retired. Do you have any thoughts on him? Where does he rank for you all time?
So I think I told you when like we first spoke about the fact that he retired, okay, like I have a controversial take that I don't think that Kane Williamson was maybe all that. But I think in the last week, I've been watching some highlights of Williamson, T20s, one days, test cricket, just looking at his numbers, reading some pieces. And Andrew Fidel Fernando wrote a really good piece on cricket info about him as well. And just like the impact that he had on New Zealand cricket, not just like in terms of his demeanor, because I think the way he was as a player and as a personality was reflected in the way we viewed the New Zealand cricket team. And anyone who can have like that sort of impact on a team is, I think, like going above and beyond like what he is as the player himself. And then when you look at his record, it speaks for himself. This is outstanding. Between 2013 and 2025, he averaged above 40 in every calendar year, and he hit 100 in each of those, except 2025. I think he only played a few innings there, but just like the mark of the consistency of the man. And this is without even getting into like what his record was overall, which is like averaging 54 in deaths, almost 10,000 runs there. ODIs over 7,000 runs, like almost an average of 50, strike rate of 82. It just, yeah, it defies
Especially with
description,
three
honestly.
formats combined, each calendar year he averaged 40 across them
Yeah,
minimum.
yeah, yeah.
I'll
It's,
take that for 12, 13 years any day, right?
it's remarkable, yeah. And that's the thing, right? Like when you see a player continuing to churn out those runs year after year, you almost get numb to it a little bit, and you sort of it loses its value. But then when you lose that player in terms of like when he retires, then you're like, okay, wow. And then that's probably how New Zealand will feel, right? In terms of that consistency. Because then like if you have guaranteed runs from one player, then no matter how good or bad the team is, like, or how talented the other players are, they can revolve around that. So I think that was my instinctive take that he was one of the great players of the last decade, part of the Fab Four, seen as like one of the best players of all time, potentially, in terms of like the contributions that he gave to the game. But is he really like, did he really leave that much of an impact on me? But then I think when I actually went back and like tried to spend some time watching his highlights and everything, I realized, okay, this is genuinely one of the greats of the game.
You're probably thinking like that because it's been a couple of years since we've seen him play, right? Like because
Exactly.
he's had injuries, he's been in and out.
Mhm.
Even if he's been there, like I remember the last World Cup, he missed like the first few games. And I guess you're also comparing him to the other Fab Four, right? So it just depends on like what you like in those guys. Where I
Yeah.
mean, coming forward in the Fab Four, you're still a pretty damn good player. I would actually, I'm not saying I necessarily believe this, but if we're just talking about like cricketers out of the
Mm.
Fab Four, you could make an argument that he's the best one.
Yeah.
With everything he does, you add the obviously the batting, the runs, the ability to step up in big moments, the dual format capability, and then the intangibles as well. Like, is there a better captain in the Fab Four than Kane Williamson? I don't know, right? Like,
Yeah. Arguably not. Yeah.
arguably not. Like, he's had moments when he stepped up. He's had big moments in World Cups
Hmm.
where he stepped up. I think he was the player of the tournament, and I think the lasting memory for me on Kane is, bro, he got robbed out of a World Cup at the end of the day, right? Like if
Yeah,
he
for sure.
a rule doesn't exist, or if the umpires don't give Ben Stokes 6 runs for the ball hitting his bat, which they shouldn't have, that was not.
Yeah.
They gave an extra run on that, right? It changes the dynamic of the game.
I think that's a
Because
really good point because that shifts like the legacy of the player completely. And not to say that he doesn't have like an insane legacy because, and what I wanted to ask you, we can come into this, is like whether he'll go down as New Zealand's greatest ever batsman. And I wanted to get your take on that. But like, again, like you said, if he wins the World Cup, like that completely changes the
like it's
picture. And
changes
he
from-
did everything that you could potentially do, and that team did everything that they could potentially do to win a World Cup. And then uske alawa, like they went on to win like a That's championship,
That's
which again, like
yeah, I forgot
exactly,
about that.
yeah. So he delivered on that, right? And again, like if you think about where New Zealand were in terms of their cricket, like they were constantly there or thereabouts without getting over the line, and so he almost like the way that team was built was almost in his own image in terms of like the nice guys, the good guys, the guys are always thereabouts. But again, I think one thing that we forget, and this is before even coming to like Williamson, the player. Well, actually, let me talk a little bit about that World Test Championship final since we started talking about that, because I was thinking about that again, and it was like a game where New Zealand again had been in a lot of those situations over the last few years where they're getting into those knockout stages, like, you know, best team throughout the tournament, but not getting over the line. Controversially, like, as you mentioned, like with that ODI World Cup in England. But again, the World Test Championship final against India, it was a low scoring game in Southampton. Like 2 entire days had been lost to rain. And it was just so happened that because it was the World Test Championship final, ICC had kept the reserve day, which is why it went to the 6th day. They were chasing around 139, which again, in itself is not a high total. It's not the most daunting task, but in the context of the game, difficult batting conditions against a very strong Indian bowling lineup, and they lost like 2 wickets like relatively early on. I think just Kane's calmness and class to be able to navigate that situation stands out and I think elevates that innings, even though on the face of it, he made 50 odd runs in that game. So not one of his best innings for a guy who scored like hundreds and 100s. But again, I said 2 words there, like stayed calm and class. And I think those are the words that sum up his career. And again, like allowed New Zealand to get over the line and like get one. And again, probably like the greatest achievement in their cricket. The One Day World Cup would have been that if like they'd been able to get over the line. But I think that's also like something that is important to note as well. I think that's the legacy he leaves, right? The legacy he leaves is that he leaves a team that continues to challenge for titles. And even if they don't get over the line, I think we as fans sometimes like get frustrated a little bit, like, oh, New Zealand Prince Harga. And so like that sort of leaves a damper, but you have to be a damn good team to get there in the first place. And I think that's the legacy he leaves, where he elevated New Zealand from being a team that was fun to watch, that was good, to a team that's like always there or thereabouts. And like they're able to deliver in those big moments, right? So I think doing that while being seen as like a generally like good guy team is like, you know, an outstanding achievement in itself. Yeah.
Bro, the biggest criticism I think people will have of him now is his T20 strike rate, right? Go look at the last T20 World Cup final that he played in 21. He played a scorcher of an innings, right?
Yeah.
Like, make no mistake about it. This guy is a nice guy and everything, but he's a stone cold killer, like on the field. Like, he'll smile his way and act all nice and everything, and you look up and he's killed you. Like, he's one of those guys, right?
Sure.
And then we talk about Brendan McCullum's team that kind of like changed the narrative around how New Zealand played. The team that Kane Williamson took to the final was not nearly as talented as that team. Like, they really snuck into the semifinals, but they got in and they took out the tournament favorite in that 2-way game against India. And then, yeah, man, like that World Cup is a little bit, you feel like, just the super over rule aside, which is one of the dumbest rules ever. It was written for England that day, right? Like, however you slice it, the extra run. But yeah, like a few things go differently. Kane Williamson can be looked at very differently. And you asked in terms of like their best batsmen. I can only comment on the guys I've seen. And he's head and shoulders their best player that I've seen, right? Because I didn't see Martin Crowe and stuff.
Exactly. It's always hard to compare players across areas. We love doing it as fans, but especially when you haven't seen that player play. That's the thing, right? Because apart from like stats and all of that, the eye test and the feeling you get when you watch a player play is to me the most important thing. Like, I don't remember how many runs a player scored or what his average was or what his strike rate was. I remember like the impact that he had on the game when I was watching it. And like, I think of like being a kid and watching like E.B. de Villiers play at that time. Like, I didn't know much about like strike rates or like how many runs he'd scored or what he was averaging, but I know that he left a lasting impact. And this was before like E.B. de Villiers became like E.B. de Villiers. He was just like a good young player at that point. But I remember like just watching him and feeling like, okay, this guy is something different. And that goes beyond like numbers, right? So
I guess like, look, I don't know if I rank him as the best test batsman out of the top 4. He could be as well. But you know how they always put that scenario out that if you had to like have one guy bat for you in a test match, he might be the guy that I throw out there, bro. Like, I don't think anybody looks as solid and as compact as he. Like, he's a beautiful player to watch as well, right?
Sure.
Simple technique. Like, we love Babar Azam. I think Babar Azam's technique is probably most closely mirrored to Kane Williamson's, right? And like how late they play the ball, like how light they look, how top hand dominated they are. Like, he's just a beautiful player to watch.
Well, the touch and the timing.
Like,
like cover drives, the back foot. I was watching this innings of him where he scored 100 in Perth against Australia, and this was in 2015. But some of the shots were like incredible. I think like Mitchell Johnson, Mitchell Stark, like he was taking them to the cleaners, like Hazelwood, like just like watching him play. I think it reminded me, okay, like this guy was one guy who like was outstanding to watch in itself as well. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. And just before you sign off, having, been privileged enough to watch pretty much the entirety of his career, because it kind of
Yeah.
coincided with our cricket consciousness as well, right?
Mhm.
Out of everybody you've seen, like, what level do you put him at in your own mind? Forget everything else. Like, just where do you see him?
It's very difficult to make a case for him not being like right at the top, just because if you look at the sheer volume of everything we've talked about and the eye test as well, I think just if you look at the best batsman we've seen, right, Kohli probably ranks as the number one of like that era across formats for me, in white ball in particular. I think there's no doubt. And Joe Root is typically seen as like the standout in tests, right? Like, not to say that all of these guys are not at that level, but I think maybe I would take those two guys individually in those formats over Kane Williamson. But like maybe overall, like you said, like I think Kane Williamson is up there. I would still say like the type of player I like to watch, and maybe like a little bit more assertive sort of players. Not to say that he couldn't necessarily do that. He would do that when he needed to. But I think he's a little bit more unassuming as a result of that. And that's why like maybe he doesn't always rank like at the top of my thought, because of the sort of personality he was. And sometimes personalities do like make a player, right? So, but again, personality doesn't mean that he isn't able to impose himself on a game or on a team or like be a great captain, which he was. But I think that's just where I sort of land on him.
Even if you just, like, forget his exact contemporaries, like when we think of like a Ponting or Callis, or do you have him around that level, like when you go back a little bit?
It's hard to say like in the moment, just because I think when you have a few years away from players, you almost like remember them like more fondly. So like Ponting, immediately you say the name, and I think maybe obviously just the World Cups and Australia
Right,
domination and stuff, and the aura is different. I think Kane Williamson maybe doesn't have that aura or impact in terms of fans, but that's just our perception of it, right?
Yeah.
And just the personality of the player more so than anything else. I think in terms of like what he did on the field, like he definitely deserves to be up there. But no, I don't feel he is in that top echelon of player for me personally, in terms of my favorites. Yeah.
But that's still no slight. Like, you're still seeing he's a great and everything. And I think that is something that you can't really dispute, and nor should anybody, right? Like, he's definitely some level of great. So shout out Kane Williamson, man. Excellent career. One of the defining players of this generation, and somebody who's definitely left a lasting impact on the game with his on-field and off-field class.